Dinger's podcast is on the air. I'm your host, Mitch. I'm here with my boys, Jeffrey and Jake. And we're here to talk some Cubs baseball, and they're back playing good baseball. So this is going to be a fun episode. I think the last two, I'll say that I've been kind of down the dumps and probably talking too much trade. So I'm sorry to our listeners that I've been negative and getting there. But yeah, we're excited to talk some Cubs baseball because they've been playing some really good baseballs late. Coming off a weekend where they took 3 of 4 from the Cardinals. But remember, we are live and available every Monday night on YouTube, on the On Tap Sports Network YouTube channel. So go and check us out there and give us a follow at Dinger Cubs on Twitter. That's where we love communicating and interacting with you guys, Cubs fans and listeners. But how are you guys tonight? How are you guys feeling after that good weekend series? We'll put on the Cardinals. Jake, you're back. You missed a couple days. How have you been?
I've been pretty good. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that I've got a new background. It is yet to be decorated. We bought a house, and I feel like a fraud. I don't feel like feels like we're Airbnb-ing here or something, even though all of our stuff is loosely settled in. But yeah, I'm excited to get. I got a lot more wall space in here than my previous office, so excited to get a bunch more stuff up on the wall. Yeah, so that's why I've been gone the last couple of weeks. Just been super busy preparing for the move and then the actual move. But other than that, I'm feeling good. I mean, listening to the last 2 pods, like I was in the same headspace, Mitch. It was convenient that the move was happening when it was, because I just didn't feel like talking Cubs baseball, man. I was just like, I felt so just like blah. And we've talked about that. Like it's been that way, back and forth this season. We talked about it a little bit before we went live, so we'll get into why it's different right now. But yeah, after coming off of taking 3 out of 4 against the Dead Birds, you got to feel pretty good. Jeff, what do you think? How are you feeling?
Oh, it made the weekend much more enjoyable when you take 3 out of 4 from the St. Louis. I mean, I hate those rat bastards. I don't. I mean, they could be in last place, and I'd be the happiest man on earth. In all of baseball, they could be the last place team in all of baseball, and I went about.
They were there. They were there at one point. I think they've kind of crawled back a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, going into that series, the Cardinals could have overtaken the Cubs, depending how the 4 games set, and that was a scary thing going into that. It's like, all right, the Cardinals have been bad for so long. If they, this is the end. If they overtake the Cubs in this 4-game set. Thankfully, that did not happen, and the Cubs played some really good baseball. Thanks a lot to do with Cody Bellinger being scorching hot, being the best player in baseball right now. His bat is on fire, just doing all the things that this Cubs offense needs right now, and is much needed for the stretch when we were struggling of driving in runs and having a guy that could provide some slug. Cody Bellinger is that. And what I've loved most about Cody Bellinger's at-bats is he does what the situation needs. Like when there's guys on bases, he's looking to slug. When he's coming up at the beginning of an inning to lead off an inning, he's just looking to get on base. He's doing the things that a good hitter does, and a good hitter that is in the middle of our lineup, they should be doing. So I love what I'm seeing out of Cody Bellinger. What are you guys' thoughts, especially this weekend, seeing him do it to the Cardinals and seeing a former Cub that we look to as a leader last year? Apparently he's on the trade block right now. But what are your thoughts on Cody Bellinger this weekend there, Jeffrey?
Oh, I was super excited. He got me 2 dingers.
He did.
So, no, that was great. No, it's he's hot. He's probably one of the hottest hitters in the majors right now. Which is good for him. I mean, he's going to wind up making a bunch of cash this offseason. But I know all of Cubs Nation is probably going to be on pins and needles till next Tuesday, until this trade deadline is over. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. If he gets traded, it's going to happen like Sunday or Monday. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I think but like not getting into the trade, like kind of talking about his situational hitting, Mitch. I was listening to one of the fantasy podcasts that I'm listening to on the daily, and somebody had a Cubs fan had commented, written in somehow talking about Cody Bellinger's two strike approach, and the context was his expected stats, his barreled balls, or his barrel rate, I should say. And what they were saying was, this Cubs fan was basically saying, like, the reason why his barrel rate and hard hit rate may not be as high as we'd want it to be is because he's focusing on putting the bat on the ball with two strikes. And there were a couple times over the weekend where that happened. He shot one through the left side, and then he pulled one through the hole in the right side. And I think both were RBI situations. And they talked about on the podcast that he's kind of a weird outlier right now. He has more home runs than barreled balls. So I think they said the percentage of hitters, I don't know how they calculated this, but something like the percentage of hitters who have more barrels than home runs is like 95%. It's like ridiculous, because what that means is he's not hitting the ball hard. It's
Nick
like he's kind of hitting
two barrels and one dinger.
What'd you say?
Nick Madrigal has 2 barrels and 1 dinger.
Yeah, even Madrigal has. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, do we want to get into like Bellinger expectations going forward? Because I can kind of talk about, like, if we're ready to dive right into the trade possibilities. I've got some
chop it up.
Well, like, I wanted to bring up a little bit. We can definitely dive into that. Like, I love that. But like, you brought up, and I wanted to kind of like puff you up a little bit, because I remember at the very beginning of the season, you were looking at his K rate, and it was trending in the right direction of staying around like 16% K rate, which in his heyday of an MVP season, it was around that 16%. And in his bad years, it was up to like 22, 23, 24%. And now this year, you notice it back early on, and even now it's at like the 16.8%. In this last month, it's down to like, just if you take the last month of him coming back from the IL, it's down to 9%. Like, so that situational hitting is, he's purposely trying not to strike out. Like, he wants to put the ball in play because the shift has gone away. So that's benefiting him. And so he's figuring out, like, oh, this is the type of hitter that is going to be successful right now for me. And it's working for him. So I love the approach I see. He does hit the ball hard. When he does barrel a ball, he hits it hard. Yeah. So he has that ability. But right now you see him using all parts of the field. You see him taking the right approach to, like, nope, I'm not going to strike out. That's like his end goal. Like, I'm going to try to hit the ball hard and in play, but I'm not going to strike out. And so that's huge for him. And that's going to be something that if you watch, like, him trending, if that K rate spikes up, that means he's off and he's going to trend the wrong way.
Right. Yeah. And I haven't looked at the numbers, but I know that I was talking about his, the zone rate and the zone contact rate, or the zone swing rate, and that he wasn't attacking. Like I said, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would imagine that has gone, the zone swing rate has gone up. Because if you're making good contact, it's more than likely on a ball in the zone. So I would assume that those numbers correlate. Again, I'll dive into it after the podcast, maybe send out a tweet about it. But I think the funny thing too with Bellinger, looking at the StatCast page, and it's not, I mean, let me see really quick. I don't think it's all like bright red. I have Seiya's up right now, and his is pretty red. But the point being, I mean, so like his xwOBA over the past 50 plate appearances is trending way up, which is great. You want to see it. That means the player's hot, making good contact. But overall, the percentile rankings are like pretty in the middle. especially in terms of like contact rates. And I think we've talked about it on here before. A former Cub and former MVP who was the same way was Chris Bryant. So it's not saying like typically a barrel percent, like a player's barrel percentage is more than likely going to predict success because they're hitting the ball hard. It's at the desired launch angle, so on and so forth. But we've seen, with what's happening with Bellinger right now and what has happened with Bryant in the past, the barrel rates and hard hit percentages, somehow they're still making it work. And that goes back to what this person was saying writing into the podcast was like, oh, it could be the 2-strike approach that's kind of bringing those things down. Because like you said, Mitch, we still see Bellinger hit the crap out of the ball. Obviously, yeah, he's got 13 barrels and 14 home runs. So it's only off by 1 right now. But what I will get into for like the second half expectations, like, I don't know, in his 2019 season, that's the MVP season, all red across the board. I mean, 86th percentile hard hit, 88th percentile barrel rate, 100th percentile ex-WOBA. So, I mean, just like, it's insane. Like, look it up. It's as red as you'd want a player's page to be. So while Bellinger is getting hotter right now, it's clear that there's still something different in his game than what we saw in 2019. And the question then becomes, is this sustainable, or is this like a 1.5 month or whatever? I know he was coming off the injured list. Is this a hot streak? So that kind of gets into the trade deadline / extension talks, which I have thoughts to, piggybacking off of this potential of just being a hot streak. But before I get into that, do you guys have anything you want to add to the contact metrics? Like, does it scare you at all? Does seeing that like scare you at all? Or are you just kind of like, well, he's being successful. Like, what do you guys think?
I think he's doing what's working for him.
Yeah.
And he knows that the last couple of years of struggle were a lot to do with injury and just striking out a ton.
Yeah.
And so to be able to correct that and he's done a great job, a lot better than others, of being able to try to find more contact, but yet still be able to keep the slug high and be able to drive in runs and hit for power for home runs. And so, yeah, sometimes he isn't barreling balls, but his stats are still giving you home runs. So he's finding the secret sauce of being able to do it. So yeah, I think this right now is a little bit of a hot stretch. Like it is like, this is unworldly what he's done in the last month.
Yeah.
What I think the more like Cody Bellinger, who he is going forward in the next couple of years, is the Cody Bellinger who we had the first half of the season. Like that guy, which was a great ball player. I would take that ball player on my team every day of the week. Like, he was a solid guy. Now you're going to have those hot stretches. Good players have them where they go on months. Sammy Sosa did it in June one time where he had all those home runs. Like,
yeah,
right. They go through those, go through those hot stretches. And so like Bellinger is going to do that. He's going to have those type of months like he's having right now. But the Cody Bellinger that we're going to see probably going forward is more first half, which is a great player. So,
Jeff,
it's made watching baseball fun again.
That's for sure.
I mean, the anticipation of what's going to happen, like when he comes up to the plate. Plus, it makes everybody around him a little bit better.
Definitely.
So,
I think it's made Seiya a lot better, like having another guy in that.
I know that he's kind of been working on his approach to the plate, and he's trying to like model it after Cody's approach to the plate, which is good because he was, struggling for quite a long time there. But like, he's got some of the best at bats on the team right now. Seiya does.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, before we get into Seiya, let's kind of talk about Bellinger and the looming deadline, because in the context of the metrics that I just talked about, I think there is a rational way for Cubs fans to look at a potential Cody Bellinger trade. So for one, I don't think a contract extension is on the table whatsoever.
It's not. Like,
yeah. And it may not be for lack of trying. It may not be because I'm not saying it's because the front office isn't trying, although the writing may be on the wall. So the front office may not be trying because they know. It doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't, but like they'd have to blow Bellinger and Boris away with a number.
And even that, I don't think right now Cody Bellinger or Scott Boras would listen to anybody right now. They want to test free agency because they don't want to hear from just one team and what they're willing to offer. They want to use that, whatever the Cubs offer, against all the other teams, and they're looking to get some bags of cash. He's going to earn it. He's going to earn it. And if I was him, I would do the exact same thing. Like, there's no extension right now that's plausible and ever going to happen.
Now, with that in mind, there is a chance that the perfect storm could be happening right now for the Cubs. And it's that Bellinger is playing out of his mind, like best offensive player in baseball, looking like the MVP that he was. Now, these front offices, they have more than what we can see on StatCast as fans. So like they know that this could be a little bit of smoke and mirrors right now, the offensive performance, but he's still playing better than he did the last few seasons. He still plays Gold Glove defense at two positions. He could help a lot of competing teams right now, including the Cubs. But if we're being practical about things, it's probably best to sell high on Bellinger. And the reason for that is because this could just be a hot stretch. So it could be that if this hot streak wears off, and it's what's propelling the Cubs to wins, which, let's be real, I mean, I think we can all agree that Bellinger playing this way is what has led to the Cubs' success over the last week.
Definitely.
So if that production falls off after the deadline and the Cubs keep him, but they were counting on Bellinger's production to propel them into a playoff hunt, they're effectively out. So trading him or him regressing is the same outcome in the record, but if you trade him, you get something in return that can hopefully help you down the line. And then you're not shouldering the fans saying like, oh my God, we should have traded him while he was hot. So like, keep that in mind. And I hope the guy continues to tear the cover off the ball after the deadline, regardless of who he's playing for. Because I think baseball is better when Bellinger is fun to watch. As Jeff said, like it's made the Cubs way more enjoyable to watch. But then on the bright side too, if we trade him and he regresses back to even like, the whatever March, April player that we saw him with the Cubs, that can bring the price tag down a little bit in the offseason. So there are so many nuances to what happens with Bellinger at the deadline here. And just because the Cubs trade Bellinger, if they trade Bellinger, doesn't mean that the season's over for the Cubs. It's probably going to be worse. There's no one really coming in to replace him. But if they work out the trades correctly, I do think that there are some pieces out there that could impact the team sooner than the sell-offs we saw of Baez, Bryant, and Rizzo a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and if we did keep him and he signed with another team, That would be the compensation pick.
Mm-hmm.
So that which is turned out to kind of be a little bit more valuable. Some teams think that they can get more.
Well, they have control over the prospect they're getting too. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. And like we as fans, it's easy like, yeah, extend Bellinger. And the pressure that Jed's under right now, and like we talked about it last week of like, if you work under Jed Hoyer and he brought you in, you have to be a little nervous about how this next year is going to go, because there's a lot of pressure on him to get this right and turn it around fast. Cause I don't know how many more years they're going to give him. Like, I don't know. Like, so he has to get this trade deadline right. And I think he feels a little bit more pressure kind of off of him with the Contreras thing, because kind of turned out best case scenario. They got a compensation pick. He went to the Cardinals and he's been playing like garbage. And so it kind of worked out the best. And they got an extension with Ian Happ, who is also big into trade talks last year. So it's kind of worked out.
But that's like, I'm glad you bring up Happ and an extension, because that's another thing. Like, you can sign one of these players to an extension, and then right after you sign that extension, the production is not quite there anymore.
Yeah. And
Happ has been, for me, one of the more frustrating players to watch over the past month and a half. It just hasn't been there. He seemed kind of passive at the plate, willing to take his walks instead of attacking the ball.
Yep. And for being a guy that's being in the 3-hole, 4-hole, you need
aggressive.
You need guys that can slug, and he's not providing that. So yeah, like the tough thing about this is, I was kind of talking about it pre-show of like, when the Cubs have been good this season, they've had all their horses. So they've had Dansby in the lineup and not hurt. They've had Bellinger there at the beginning of the season. They were playing some really good, fun baseball, and there wasn't anybody hurt. As soon as one guy went down, when it was Nico there for a while, went down, the lineup just didn't function and move right. They didn't have the guy that can set the table. And then when Bellinger went out there for a while, they didn't have somebody that could slug. And Seiya wasn't providing that, because Seo's coming off of an injury at the beginning of the season. And then you had Dansby go down. And so they play the best when they've had all their horses there, and there's still some holes to fill. But the best Cubs team is the team that Jed, I think, planned to have there the whole year, but he didn't backfill with guys that could replace them well enough. Like, they just didn't have, and they don't have it in Iowa at AAA. They just don't. There's some guys, but not the guys that are going to be able to step in and provide what Cody Bellinger has provided the last month.
For sure.
And so,
yeah.
So that's where it's like, it's tough, because I want to see them push for a playoff spot, because the Central's open. And I really think if they were to, Bellinger loves playing here. You've heard it from Stroman that Stroman loves playing here. If the Cubs did make one or two moves and add, and Bellinger has that fun rest of the season playing here, like, yeah, he might, I don't know him personally, but like, when you have fun in a place and you figured it out at a place, even for me, like at a job, when I feel comfortable working with the people, like, it's hard to leave, because grass isn't always greener on the other side. No. And even no matter how much money like they throw at you, like, look at Chris Bryant. I bet you Chris Bryant is not having fun right now, because he's not playing well, and he's playing for the Rockies and they're not playing well. It's fun to play on a team that you're having fun, you're playing well, and you've kind of got your groove back. And if you do make a push to the playoffs by adding here at the trade deadline, I know I've totally changed my tune from like last 2 weeks, because I was like, but that's where I was at as a Cubs fan. So just bear with me. But like, they added and they did make a push and they snuck in. Like, that's going to help when you go to the table in the offseason, that you have like, hey, remember this great experience we had pushing the playoffs? We could do that again next year. And we're going to go out and spend more money and get some guys around. We're going to get a first baseman. We're going to get a third baseman. Like, that's the thing that they need to be doing for me.
Yeah. I want some solid corner infielders for Christmas. I don't need that peace on earth stuff.
Christmas is a long ways away. I need it now, Jeff.
There will be peace on earth, Jeff, if the Cubs find solid corner infielders. And that's kind of the thing. So we got Scott in the comments saying Giants and Phillies both lost today. Cubs are 5 games back, 4 in the loss column. Let's go for it. Yes. But So in this thread of trade possibilities, I put it out over the All-Star break. I think I put it out on that Monday. I don't know. A day that nothing was going on. It has 1 like. I thought I made some good points. No one really seemed to see it. That's fine. But basically,
I'll go like it.
Oh, thanks, Mitch. So basically, what I was saying is we don't know what the trade market's going to be. I saw in the comments on CHGO's live stream today, someone was commenting like, look at what we traded for Chapman. Why couldn't we get a similar return for Kimbrel? It's like, first of all, there's so many reasons, but those trades, like us trading Glaber and. Was it just Glaber for Chapman? Who am I missing?
No, there was another relief pitcher that we got from the Yankees that same season. What was his name? He had like a blank expression all the time.
A guy that we got from
Adam
the Yankees.
Warren.
Adam Warren.
Yep, because I remember I went to a game when Adam Warren was pitching.
Yeah. I mean, he's like Ted Lilly 2.0.
Yeah.
Never excited.
But not as good.
Never pissed off.
They got Gleyber Torres and Billy McKinney. Because I remember he's bounced around quite a few. He keeps showing up on teams the Cubs play.
Yeah, McKinney. And he's still only like 27 or 28
years old. He's on the
Yankees.
Yankees.
He's been around forever. Yeah, he's still on the Yankees, I think. But the point being, like, to get a team's top prospect or like a higher prospect for a rental piece, we're probably going to have to throw in a sweetener. And by that, I mean, one of our depth outfield prospects that because we have a lot of outfield prospects right now, and I'm not saying Canario, I'm not saying Casey, maybe like as much as I love him, Cole Roederer or something like that, like along with Bellinger or Stroman to get a team's top 10 corner infield prospect, preferably a third base prospect in return. So the teams that I looked at were the Rays, the Orioles, and the Rangers. And this was July 11th. All these teams still in contention. All these teams still going to be buyers. But they need different things. So, well, actually, all of them could really use pitching. So I looked at it in the Marcus Stroman being the piece that we trade away. For the Rays, I looked at Curtis Mead, who's a third baseman, or Kyle Manzardo or Xavier Isaac are 2 first basemen that they have. And the thing for the Rays is they have so much infield depth. It's ridiculous. Like, they have one of those 3 guys that I just mentioned is going to be traded probably for pitching at the deadline. If the Cubs can land Curtis Mead, I'd be pretty excited. But on the other, elsewhere in the AL East, the Orioles need pitching. Their pitching's been better, but they could definitely bolster their rotation, and Stroman would do that. My favorite option is Cody Mayo. Cody Mayo's been tearing it up in AAA this year. Look at his minor league track record. He's been stellar. Third baseman. They've already got Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday waiting in the wings, Jordan Westberg, and Connor Norby. So I would not be surprised to see Cody Mayo moved.
Dude has 18 bombs this year.
He's good. He's really good. And I don't think he strikes out much. I think he's a higher contact power bat at third base. I don't know how good his defense is, but if the offense plays, the glove can come along. Like eventually, like we've seen guys make strides on defense in the past. I said Diamondbacks too. I don't really know what the Diamondbacks are going to make moves for pitching as well. There's not really anybody there. Then you see a lot of people talking about Justin Foscue, a third baseman in the Rangers system, because they have Josh Young, who I think is, looking at the American League, like he's probably going to win Rookie of the Year this year. So Justin Foscue, the minor leaguer, is kind of blocked. And I don't know if he plays outfield or what the situation is there, but that's a guy that you could also probably get for Bellinger. They just had Randy not Arozarena. I always get Adolis Garcia, outfielder for the Rangers, just got hurt. Cody Bellinger is going to be out on the 10-day IL with a wrist sprain or a thumb sprain or something like that. So there are options out there, and all of those names that I mentioned, I would bet you'll see some of those names move for sure to get pieces similar to Bellinger or Stroman. And honestly, like Bellinger and Stroman are probably the two best pieces on the market right now. So the Cubs have that going for them.
Well, I think Stroman's trying to, bring down his trade value with that start he had last Thursday. My
yeah,
thoughts.
but over the past, we talked about it here. His consistency over the long haul has been insane. And the dude's a gamer. Like he wants to play for winners. So,
dude, watching highlights of that Kobe Mayo, that dude's a stud. I would take him at third base all day. Like he's put together a pretty good minor league season this year. And not just like pretty high OPS, pretty high slug. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so keep an eye on where he ends up. I think if the Cubs can land him, Jed did a phenomenal job at the deadline. Even if they have to give up a prospect to do it, I think that's worth it. I think that's worth it in the end.
If you say PCA, I'm going to throw punch you.
No. We don't give up our top prospect. Absolutely not.
I could see
not when you're giving up the best piece in the deal already in Bellinger. Like that's what you have, what the Orioles or the Rays or the Diamondbacks or the Rangers want.
And I could see the Orioles making that trade because they have guys already at those positions, and
exactly, yeah,
they're just now in first place. They want, like, they see that their window is opening, and they just surpassed the Rays, I think, for first place. I don't know, they might have gave it back, but like, this is their time to go, and hopefully they have a front office that is willing to make that deal. Because that would be a great piece to get, and we definitely need it. The thing that stinks is then you open up center field, that you need to then go get a center fielder over the next for 1 or 2 years until PCA is ready to take over there.
I think PCA will be ready next season. I don't think he'll start the season at the major league level, but I would anticipate seeing him up.
He's going to get called up to AAA soon. And then next year be ready for
What happened to Brennan Davis?
He had surgery again.
Really?
He had another core surgery. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a guy that just is like, and that's the problem too, right? When people say like, "Oh, our farm system is so good," first of all, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not. It's pretty middling. But even if it looks like you have prospects, guys get hurt, guys fall out of baseball. Whatever. Like, look at Miguel Amaya's story, man. Like, and Braylon Marquez is probably still only like 23, 24. Like, he's still young. He could still come
bouncing back. He's been pitching really well now.
Has he? I haven't even paid attention.
South Bend, he's pitched in like 3 games, and I know he's had 2 strikeouts in every single one. Hasn't get up and run. Like, been pitching really, really well.
I like I like the farm systems, just like when people that follow college football and they're like, "Oh, you see this recruit we got in the class of 2024." I'm like, Yeah, that's like 2 years away.
Yeah.
This kid still has to not subtract.
He still has to pass an Algebra 2 test.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time before you'll see that kid on the field. Anything can happen. So that's how I kind of look at the farm system.
Totally, and that's why like the names that I mentioned, like these trade pieces that I mentioned that the Cubs, any of them I'd like the Cubs to get in return. Those guys are closer. Like I'm pretty sure all of those guys are in AAA.
Yep, all of them
pretty much ready to contribute. Like they're ready to be called up. So, and I think that's something like fans should keep in mind post deadline. Keep an eye on the proximity of these prospects, because if Jed can land a top, even if it's like a top 15 prospect who's ready to play at the major league level before the end of the season, that's probably a pretty good outcome. Like it's probably going to end up being a pretty good trade.
Switching a little bit, let's talk about Taillon. We have him under contract for a couple more years, so we need to kind of watch how he's been pitching. And since coming over, has really struggled. Took a long time for him to get his first W, but the last 2 outings, starting in New York at his old stomping grounds, had a really good outing, and then did it again this weekend pitching. What was his line?
6 innings, I think 6 1/3.
They give up like 7 hits, 1 run, 1 walk.
Hang on, I got it. 5 2/3, 7 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Yeah, good job, Jeff. You got it.
But pitching really, really well. I have noticed the last couple outings he's been paired up with Amaya. I think they've kind of found a good connection there. So
still not a believer.
You're still not a believer in Taillon?
Still not a believer.
I think he's trending in the right direction. And so that gives me a little bit more hope and optimism. I think the big thing that he was struggling with, and he would even say, I listened to an interview of his 4-seamer, it was running a lot, and it was running back out over the plate. And he was really struggling with controlling that 4-seamer. And you would see him get hit hard a lot on that 4-seamer. And as of late, you've seen him be able to control that 4-seamer. I saw it a couple times earlier in the game on Saturday. But then by the second or third inning, when he threw that 4-seamer, it wasn't getting out over the plate. It wasn't tailing away. So as long as you can watch that and get him to control that pitch, I think that then he can command the strike zone a little bit better, and then he can work off and use his other pitches. So I think he's trending in the right direction, and that only benefits the Cubs because we needed another guy in the starting rotation to be solid. The problem is they had him trending up and doing well, and then you had Drew Smyly, who was really good at the beginning of the season, trending way down. And so I'm just going to kind of lump this talk of Taillon and Smyly together of, do we fill the next rotation spot of Drew Smyly with a Hayden Wesneski? Do we call him up? Because that game that he pitches will be probably 1 or 2 days before the trade deadline. And right now, going into the trade deadline, if we want to be buyers, we're going to have to win some games, a lot of games. And so do we bring up Hayden Wesneski to fill that spot for Drew Smyly? I saw on Saturday that they did a starter with Michael Fulmer. Didn't really like that whole thing. I know Michael Fulmer has pitched as a starter in the past, but just didn't like that. Didn't think it worked really, really well. Luckily, the bats came through and still provide us a win. But what are your guys' thoughts on, should we bring Wesneski up to cover Drew Smyly, and what do we then do with Drew Smyly? What do you think, Jeff?
But you're muted, Jeff.
Now, hey, can you hear me now?
We got you.
All right. Yeah, we need something. We got to do something. If you bring up Wesneski, I don't know if you start him essentially. Maybe you piggyback him, give somebody the first few frames and let him start, because Wesneski's problem is, I think he's super amped up in that first inning, and is just throwing balls all over the place, and his command kind of sucks. It's not until he calms down, but by that time you're in a deficit. And as far as Drew Smyly, what we do with him is maybe an MRI. I don't know.
One of the phantom IL stints.
Yeah. Cut the blister off his finger. I don't know. But he was
cut the finger off his finger.
the blister. The blister off
just
his
the blister.
finger.
Yeah, just the right.
Or the callus, whatever. But no, he was so great at the beginning of the season, but he's had some clunkers of late. And
Hayden Wesneski's last start was 5 innings, 0 runs, 8 Ks, 0 base on balls, 13 swing and misses.
Wow. Now, if you can only, that's like me at the driving range. I hit everything so great at the driving range. I get on the course and I'm getting my money's worth because I'm all over the place.
Yeah, you're really exploring, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to bring him up because so it'll be against the Cardinals. They've got some scary righties in that lineup, though they could be traded by the time we're playing them. Stroman or Hendricks, and I hope it's Stroman. I hope Hendricks finishes the season as a Cub. Just because, like what really are you going to get for Kyle right now?
Yeah.
Versus doing the fans a service and letting him finish his contract out with the Cubs.
Let him
I
retire
would much
Cub.
prefer that. But the point being, like, you're probably going to see a slot open up in the rotation sooner than later. And I think it makes sense, like, if that slot's going to open, start it now to remain competitive. Because even if, like, these games against the Cardinals, even if the Cardinals haven't sold anybody off yet, the Cubs should be winning those games.
Yeah.
And
just like the next 2 games that they play against the White Sox, they should be winning that game.
Yeah, I will be at tomorrow's game for what it's worth too. The Cubs, for not even for their playoff chances, right? It's just like for the fans, like for us to get something to have something to be excited about. Like, oh, you're telling me that I get to see Wesneski coming off this 6th start, come up and hopefully shove against the Cardinals. Yeah, okay. I'm in. Like, let's do it, because, like I said, he's going to be back up in a starting role before the season is over. And I've seen somebody make the same argument about Mervis too. Like, he's probably going to have a role with the Cubs before the season's over. So, like, why not just get them back in the mix, especially if you're going to trade pieces off? Like, get them back in the mix sooner than later to get them extended run at the major league level, figure out their problems with the major league staff, to hopefully go into next season ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah, I would say that with Wesneski, I don't want to see Mervis brought up right now, just because
not now, but if we trade Bellinger,
yes,
and
if we
Mervis
trade Bellinger
isn't brought up immediately, that's a joke.
Or even Nelson Velasquez for that. Like, he's been raking down at Iowa. I think he's up to like 16 home runs down there. It's like, he plays some outfield. Like, I'd love to see him, like, get an extended shot in the major league just to see what you could get. And he could be one in the future you could trade. Is he your everyday outfielder of the future? Probably not, but he's a piece some other team might want as a 4th outfielder that could hit for some power. Like, so, like, I would like to see him just get a shot out there a little bit.
It's been a while since we've seen Nelson.
Yeah. Come up, hit 1 grand slam, and then send him back down.
That's right.
I know we've got a couple other things we want to talk about, but I want to ask, sneaky trade pieces. Do you guys think Yan Gomes or my current favorite Cub, Mike Tauchman, could be dealt at the deadline?
I could see Tauchman being I could see
more than you could see Gomes being traded.
I could see one of the catchers being traded, just because I think I think Amaya's earned enough credibility with the pitching staff that like they like him receiving. And so I could see
offensively he's been solid.
So I could see them. I think they do like Gomes in the dugout. I think he's a good team guy. I think a lot of players looked at him. I mean, if you listen to Compound Podcast, like Ian loves Jan Gomes. I think a lot of players look at him kind of as like the Grandpa Rossi figure of like he has a lot of knowledge, wisdom. He's been there for a while. But Tauchman, like what he's doing right now for the Cubs, a lot of teams would love that, of being able to play 4 days a week, 3 days a week, and have that spark, a left-handed bat that you can plug in. And like a lot of teams would be looking for that in the playoffs. Like I would be looking for a solid guy off the bench that could take a good at bat and play me some good outfield. Like, so yeah, that's a sneaky one. I didn't even think about Tauchman possibly being traded, but yeah.
I didn't either. I was really thinking that Gomes would be somebody that could potentially leave along with Stroman and Bellinger. And then Madrigal, somebody could pick him from us. Just take him.
Is Madrigal rehabbing yet?
He's rehabbing at Iowa. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So he should be due to hit a home run down there.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought I wouldn't be surprised, especially if fans are expecting, more of a midseason retool. Those are two guys, like I'd prefer to see Tauchman finish the season as a Cub. I think he's been really fun. The hometown story is awesome. But yeah, he's got value right now and he's played for winners. And the same with Gomes, he's got a World Series title. Obviously, the offensive production this season has been way, way better than we could have asked for, and we know what he does behind the plate. Productive catchers are always, you talk about getting to know a pitching staff mid-season. Like, that can be difficult. That can pose, like, that could be one of the things that held up a Contreras trade last season. But, I
apparently he can't catch on to the Cardinal way very fast anyway. So
I hope he gets traded, man. That'd be so satisfying. That'd be so satisfying.
We could bring him back.
Yeah, let's do that.
He winds up with the Pirates or the Rockies.
I mean, we do need a fill-in catcher down at Iowa. We could trade, get him back, send him down. He probably has an option.
Have fun in Des Moines.
Yeah.
Where the S's are silent and the city's buzzing.
There you go. Yeah, it's going to be a fun. Like I'm looking forward to this week. Cubs are playing some hot ball. I am, because I think this is like the players. You're going to see the players don't want to win these games, so they're going to be playing. Like it's not that they don't want to win games. They're like that comes off wrong a lot of times. Like
from the perspective of watching baseball, yes, I'm excited to watch baseball, but I'm not excited for the next 8 days of rumors and speculation.
Yeah. But you're gonna see. I think the Cubs continue their winning ways, going especially into the White Sox series. Then you have the Cardinals again. They played the Cardinals really well this year, and then you have them going into the Reds, and so. I think they played the Reds the day before the trade deadline. I mean, like, if they could make up and be what did
I think we're 6.5, and I think
we're 5 games back in the wild card, 4 in the loss column.
I think we're 6 in the division. 6 in the division.
So if we could get to 3. You could make up one on the Reds. Like it's going to put pressure on the front office. And anytime there's the players making it tough on the front office, that's a good thing. Like we need to make them have tough decisions, because if we were losing and we were playing like we were a couple weeks ago, and we just rolled over from there, then this would have been an easy decision probably for Jed to make, especially with Bellinger, especially with Stroman. Like, yeah, it's easy. Like we're going to trade him. But like right now, like you've seen some fight, you've seen what this team is capable of. If you could add, and they've identified, they know where they could add. Like I'm looking forward to this going into the trade deadline, because I think last year and the year before you knew what was going to come. This year, at least, I think there's some pressure, and the Cubs are playing a lot better baseball going into the trade deadline than they have in years past. So, yeah, have fun at the game tomorrow. That's gonna be fun. Is this gonna be your first Cubs White Sox game?
Not first, but first since like 2012, probably. I'm going with my buddy Nick Prazu. He's in the fantasy league with us, so he's for sure not listening to this. But shout out to Nick anyway. Nice. He's a Sox fan. He's a Sox season ticket holder, so he came to a game.
I think you should be more selective of who you hang out with.
Hey, Nick's a phenomenal guy. He's a great friend.
There can be good guys that like the White Sox.
Yeah,
there's a few of them.
Name one other one.
I don't know him personally.
My grandpa watches both teams, so
there you go.
Grandpa's a great man.
I can't really. No, I can't. No, you can't watch both.
Here's his argument.
Or you're on the wrong side.
He grew up playing baseball in Chicago. Like he grew up in the city, played 2 city championships at Wrigley Field. He is a Cubs fan, but he said he just takes pride in having 2 teams from the city that he grew up in, and he's happy when either one of them is doing good. But he'd prefer the Cubs be doing.
We wouldn't know that because we live in Iowa and there's no sports teams.
Yeah, you guys don't
Iowa.
get it.
We don't get nothing.
I guarantee if there was a Major League Baseball team in our state, no matter how bad they were, I would be the biggest fan. Like, just would.
Yeah. We've got a Series 1, I think that's what it's called, soccer team in Madison. They draw big crowds. I've never been to a game. So I just like.
Well, yeah, that's because you got the Badgers.
Yeah. We got Bucky.
Yeah, go Badgers.
All right. Well, I look forward to this week, especially Crosstown Cup. You got to get up for anytime the Cubs play the White Sox. It's fun. Remember, there's no fighting in the bleachers. And yeah,
well, they're at
Comiskey.
Right, so.
Yeah, they're
take your brass knuckles.
There's going to be fighting. So be under control there, Jake. Break up any fights.
I'll be good. Yeah.
But yeah, that does it for episode 129. We're almost at 130.
That seems like a cake episode.
Yeah, cake. Bring a cake. Hopefully we can celebrate getting some players. But yeah, go Cubs, and thanks for listening. Remember, follow us at Dinger Cubs, and go check out the OnTapSportsNetwork.com, where you can find great articles. They're going to be pumping out articles like crazy as we head closer to the trade deadline. The guys over there, the writers over there are amazing. So go check them out. They just wrote an article on Dansby Swanson. That was a great piece. So go check them out. But yeah, that does it for episode 129 of the Dingers podcast. Go Cubs.
And congrats to Pat Hughes.
Oh, yeah. Totally forgot.
We didn't talk about that. Yeah.
I jumped right into it. You stole my thunder. I was going to wait for him to hit the stop record. And when I had a few seconds, I was going to say,
oh, my goodness.
We're not going to talk about Pat Hughes.
Before we end, we need to congratulate Pat Hughes on his induction into the Hall of Fame. I mean, all of us at the Dingers podcast grew up listening to Pat Hughes. How could I forget that? But we're going to take time. We got to make time for Pat. My earliest memories of Cubs baseball was on our farm listening to an old tractor radio of Pat Hughes and Ron Santo calling games. Well, I was sitting on the tractor waiting for my dad, or my dad doing stuff, riding along with him. Like, that is how I grew up with baseball. Even now, I would much rather a lot of times listen to the radio than watch the game live on TV. And even now, like I do that a lot. Like I'm working, I have my kids out playing catch or doing something out in the yard, and like I have the game on the radio playing, and it's just like it's the sound of summer. Like Jake, you tweeted out there, like he's been our sound of summer or our soundtrack to summer for years.
My whole life, basically, yeah.
To see him get the recognition that he deserves is awesome. So yeah, that's my, like what he means to me. It'll be a sad day when he's no longer to think about that. My kids won't have Pat Hughes eventually down the road. Like that's a sad thought to have.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it was just like so many memories. Like I tweeted so many memories, like listening to 720 with Pat and Ron Santo with my dad. And like, I'm so grateful for those memories shared. And Pat's just been a constant. I mean, hearing Chicago Cubs baseball is on the air is like, it just makes me smile every time I hear it. Yep. So yeah, a summer without Pat Hughes is just not like it doesn't exist in my life. It doesn't exist in my life. In my
almost had that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
I think opening day was today, 3 years ago. And I believe Kyle Hendricks threw a shutout. Had a shutout against the Brewers.
Wow.
Probably a half dozen critical points in the game during that podcast.
Buckle of seatbelts. Yeah. No, all the little Pat Hughesisms that he says. Yeah. So congratulations. Much deserved. And
yes, long overdue.
Thank you for being our voice of the Chicago Cubs, because we appreciate you and appreciate you feeling like you're listening to a family member just talk Cubs rather than a broadcaster a lot of times. So it's awesome. But all right, thanks for listening. That does it for episode 129 of the Dingers Cubs podcast. Should be a fun week. Go Cubs.